Hi guys, my name is Roland. Welcome to the second workshop of the Certified in Cyber series. Who was here for the first one? Raise of hands. Yay, nice to see you guys again. People who didn't raise their hands, were you guys able to watch the recording or get some kind of background information beforehand? Okay, if not, that's perfectly fine. We have a website where we post other recordings and slides. It's perfectly fine if you missed the first workshop, but I do recommend you go back and review it just so when you take the exam, you are ready with everything. If you guys want to find the website, it's gonna be at acmurl.com/certified. And here you'll see all three of our workshops, and I will post the slides and recording of each one afterwards. But let us not delay anymore. Let's get started with incident response and business continuity. Let's do this. Perfect. Check-in code is exploit. I'm sure you guys are all checked in. And once you guys are, let's move right in. So today we're gonna do a quick review of domain 1 and 3, which is our first workshop, and then we're gonna move on to domain 2, response, continuity, and recovery, and then domain 5, security operations, and at the end, I'm gonna do a quick recap, and you guys are welcome to ask any questions regarding the content, regarding cybersecurity, ACM, whatever you guys would like. So, for the people that were here for the first workshop, domain 1, we covered something called the CIA triad. Who remembers what CIA stands for? And whoever answers gets a granola bar. You want to start?
Confidentiality, integrity, accessibility.
Correct. CIA triad, I'm going to throw at you. Does stand for confidentiality, which means that your data is protected from people who you don't want to view it. And then integrity, which means that your data is not altered in any manner. And then accessibility, which means that you're always able to access your data. So yes, that is a CIA triad. There are several types of security controls. Who remembers the 3 types of those controls? Yes, in the back.
Physical, logical, and administrative.
Yes, those are correct. I'm gonna throw this at you, okay? Oh yeah. Perfect. So the first type of security control is a physical control. This can be a wall, a fence, a door lock, something that physically stops you from accessing some kind of database or information. Second are logistical controls. These are like passwords, these are encryptions, these are firewalls that will systematically block you from accessing some kind of information. And then the last one is administrative security controls, which are imposed upon you by your organization. And a great example of this would be like Duo Mobile. You guys have 2-factor authentication for all your UCSD accounts. And that's it. That's domain 1 and 3. So let's move on to domain 2. Incident response, business continuity, and disaster recovery. I do recommend you guys have a note-taking device out, something to take notes so you can study for your exam. Okay, so in this realm of cybersecurity, there are many unknowns. There are many concerns we have. What if you get hacked? What if we have a really bad security event? What if someone falls for a phishing attack? Or like, what if our firewall fails to detect some kind of malware? These are all concerns that we have both as an individual and as an organization regarding cybersecurity. So, these are all responses to a security incident, which is when an adverse event undermines the CIA triad of an information system. Reminder again, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and accessibility. Examples of security incidents can be like ransomware, man-in-the-middle attacks. If you guys were here last year, ACM Cyber actually had a man-in-the-middle event where we conducted our own attack. It could even be things like natural disasters that cause like a power outage and like your data center gets shut down. Or it could be downtime of critical data or those data systems. And then worst case scenario, it could be the result of someone on your team, a human accident that causes like a minor outage. And most of these security incidents are harmless, but if it disrupts the business's mission or vision, then that becomes an incident. So say I'm on Amazon and I'm trying to buy this hoodie that I think is really nice. If I am trying to buy that hoodie and all of a sudden I'm no longer able to access Amazon.com, that would become a security incident because now Amazon's goal as a business is unable to serve the customer. But if I were on like my own computer and I get infected with a virus, that would just be an adverse event because it's not affecting my own personal like goal as a business. Yes, you had a question.
Oh, I was meaning like, how are these events harmless? Well, I guess kind of just explain it to.
When we say it's harmless, it means that it doesn't disrupt the business's operations or the mission of the organization. So something as simple as maybe your two-factor authentication didn't go through for like a minute or two, and then it comes delayed. That didn't significantly interrupt the business.
So this is in the context of like, you're an employee of a company.
Yes. Domain 3 and 5 refer specifically to cybersecurity within the business world. So, once this incident happens, what we use is an incident response plan. This defines the procedures and standards needed to respond to an incident with the goal to resume daily operations. In this case, all employees will follow this plan depending on their roles within the organization, and it defines the technical processes, techniques, checklists, and other tools to use to resolve this incident. And usually it references like the company's security policies and other industry recommended practices, and it even may include counter defenses to restore systems integrity and to prevent future attacks. So, quick review. Security incident is when there is an outage or some kind of other adverse event that stops the business operations. And then in response to that, we have this incident response plan where we try to resume the daily operations of said business and restore systems integrity. But this is a best case scenario. What if shit goes down even worse? In case of an attack on database servers, which of the following do you think are the top or not the top priorities and goals of an incident response plan? Whoever answers gets a granola bar. Yes, you. Proactive planning and preparation? No, actually, that is one of the top priorities. In the back. Sorry? That also is a top priority of a business. I wouldn't want any of my employees to be dying on me. Yes. Yes. That would be the correct answer because financial loss in this case is perfectly fine. What we're trying to do is to restore the operations of the business, to preserve the business survival, and to protect those that are working in our business. If we lose money along the way, unfortunately, we have to live with that. So let's move on to business continuity. This is when you try to sustain business operations while recovering from a significant disruption or cyber attack. And again, the goal is to maintain the business and its operations. The way I like to remember it is try to keep the store open. And in response to a major crisis or a higher level incident, the response plan may change. In this case, preventing financial loss may become a priority. And the way, again, I like to remember this is imagine you're running a shop and something bad happens, you want to keep that shop open and continue your business. So we had an incident response plan. Who here thinks we have a business continuity response plan? Well, surprise, we do. A business continuity plan typically restores a business function as opposed to a technical one. So in this case, important things are like communications. You want to notify team members, you want to, and other parties of the incident happening at your business, and then you want to immediately respond to, again, continue that business. So in an incident response plan, you're trying to restore that technical function. The example is trying to restore a customer's access to your online store, whereas a business continuity plan is you're just trying to make the business survive. So far, we've covered a technical function, and we covered a business function. What is next? Now, we're talking about real disasters. So if after all of this, a crisis still persists, you're fucked. No, you're not. You continue the actions of the emergency response until the business is restored to those normal conditions and operations. And again, the goal of all of these three procedures is to recover and restore operations back to normal. And specifically, the disaster recovery plan consists of technical guides for recovering specifically IT and communication services. So in the picture, you can see if your database or if your data center is on fire, you want to get rid of the fire so that the database can continue to operate. So, quick overcap of the three we just reviewed. Incident response is resolving an adverse event or a cyber incident with the goal to resume your daily operations. Whereas business continuity is keeping the business operating in some capacity, any at all, and the goal is just to maintain that business and its operations. And then worst of all is disaster recovery, which is getting operations back to normal. In this case, your operations have fully stopped and you want to recover them again. And yes, that is the goal of disaster recovery. So let's get a little practice in, and this is what's at stake for everyone. Which of the following describes a business continuity plan? And remember, on that 3 chart I just made, it's the one in the middle. Yes. Yes, this would be B. How do we keep the business running in a significant disruption? The goal of a business continuity plan is to maintain operations and operate the business as usual. The disaster recovery effort for an organization like UCSD Housing, Dining, and Hospitality is a way to ensure that critical what kinds of functions are being implemented during a crisis. Yes, in the back. C. C is, you're thinking along the right way, but it's not correct. I mean, the answer is technical. The goal of a disaster recovery plan is to recover those technical functions. And this question is a bit misleading because IT can be considered a technical function, so you get one anyway. Horrible news. The ACM AI building burns to the ground in a horrible fire, and all ACM activities are halted completely until AI's critical functions are brought back. ACM Cyber, the best one out there, is tasked with implementing and maintaining a critical backup system. Once completed, the team will work on getting alternate systems up and running. So what kind of plan does this describe? Would this be an incident response, business continuity, or disaster recovery plan? Yes. Yeah. No, this would not be an incident. This is actually quite the big incident. Yes. Yes, this would be disaster recovery because ACM AI's critical functions are completely halted and the business is no longer operating at all. And then we're getting everything back up and running. So at this point, the operations have completely stopped. So that would describe a disaster recovery response. Okay, it's boba time, but it's not boba time. It's not also tapioca espresso time either. It's Chipotle time, and you guys don't need to do this. So everyone is free to grab half a burrito or a bag of chips and a dip. So please help yourself at the open kitchen. And we'll have like a couple minutes of just enjoying your food, socializing hour. Are we ready for security operations? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So, this is a lot more fun of a domain, in my opinion. The one we just finished was very corporate style, but this is the bread and butter. So, domain 5, security operations. Let's get started. Let's start with the data handling. So, our data and our information goes through a life cycle as we create, share, and modify the data. And we define this flow as the data security lifestyle. So the life cycle, so that we can handle it appropriately in its different stages. So I'm going to use Google Docs as an example. You start by creating a Google document, right? You store it, you type all your words into it, and then say you use it to read the words you typed, and then you share it, you submit it, and then you're done with it. That document now is in the archive. It sits in your Google Drive until you delete it. And once that day comes and you delete it, you destroy it, that piece of data is now done. And that is the life cycle of data. In that lifestyle, there are separate classifications, and these define the potential impact or damage to the CIA triad attributes if that data is compromised. So by classifying our data as either public, by meaning you share the link with anyone and anyone can view your Google document, internal only, you share it only with UCSD, or confidential, you keep it private to yourself. These classifications will determine the rules and restrictions about how you use, store, and delete this kind of data. So now that we have created this data, now that we have classified this data, how are we going to store it? That is data retention. It's us keeping data for only as long as we need it. You should not keep it any longer, and you should not keep it any shorter than that. As per industry standards and laws, usually retention and deletion periods are saved. Usually at companies, it's either 1 year or 2 years, and afterwards, information will automatically be deleted for security purposes. And just remember that you want to keep this in balance. You don't want to keep data for too long because it wastes storage and creates clutter. And you don't want to keep data for too short because then it's no longer accessible when you need it. So now that we've created data, we've classified it, and we retained it, what part of the data cycle are we in now? Yes, you. Sorry? Yes, we are one step before the end of the data cycle. Oh, overshot. So after we've done all this with our data, it is finally time for data deletion. The end of the data cycle, the end of life. It's very sad. We must fully delete data at the end of the data retention period. This can be by clearing it, overwriting it, purging it, physically destroying it. Back in the day, once a company was liquidated, they would take the hard drives and physically destroy them so that the data is no longer accessible. And one thing to keep in mind is that data remnants will persist, which means that there's data that should have been deleted, but sometimes it gets left behind. And this is where cybersecurity comes into play. You can actually access certain files by looking at recently deleted histories and finding ones that have been remained. Who knows what OS that recycling bin is from?
Windows 10.
Windows 10, you know it. Let's get some practice in. So, blank reflects how an organization characterizes risks and determines how data is labeled, stored, and used. Would that be handling, classification, retention, or deletion? Yes.
Data classification.
Yes. Classification would characterize risks and tell us how we should proceed with managing this data. The storage phase of the data security life cycle is most closely associated with which of the following concepts? Would that be handling, classification, retention, or deletion? Yes. Yes, that would be retention. That's when we're storing our data. That was clean. Okay, and that's domain 5. So far, we've covered domain 1, 2, 3, and 4. You guys are like basically ready to take the exam. So we're gonna cover something a bit extra. This will not be tested on the ISC squared exam, but it's fun to know. Encryption and hashing. So what is encryption? Encryption is protecting data by making it unintelligible, meaning you're not able to read it and immediately understand what it is. And this is most often done by using a SHA-256 hash key. And this is the process of encryption. We have a plain text. We're gonna use a text message as an example here. Say I'm texting Nick, right? I say hello. That plain text, hello, HELLO, is then put into an encryption key and becomes a string of a bunch of random numbers and letters. Once I send that message out, it goes over to Nick, and then he will use a decryption key to translate that message from a bunch of random numbers and letters back to plain text. So the flow is plain text, goes through some kind of complicated encryption algorithm, and it ends up being a ciphertext. And then to get back to plain text, we put it back through the algorithm, and you get your plain text. There are several types of encryption. We're gonna start with symmetric encryption. This is when the same key is used for both the encryption and decryption process. There's one key that is shared between both the sender and the receiver. The sender will encrypt the message with this key, and then once the receiver receives the message, they will decrypt it with the same exact key. So in this flow that we just talked about, that some kind of complicated encryption algorithm is just that secret key. And the same key is used to encrypt and decrypt. So this sounds super nice, right? But of course, there are always pros and cons. Pros of symmetric encryption is that it's very easy to encrypt large pieces of bulk data. It's very easy to stream large scale and time sensitive kind of data. This kind of encryption is very quick. And there's also minimal processing overhead. But the cons, if you send this person the key through the same channel, anyone can access that key and then decrypt your message. So an example I like to think is, if I'm sending you an envelope with my encrypted message and the key inside of it, technically anyone who gets that envelope will be able to read that encrypted message by using the key in that same envelope. And also this has scalability problems because every new user will require a new key, and you can imagine that grows and grows and grows with every single user you have. So quick summary, Symmetric encryption is really good for simple uses. It's very quick, it's very lightweight, but it will take up memory because every single user needs a new key. And that's why they made asymmetric encryption. This is when a key pair is used for the encryption and decryption process, where one key is used to encrypt, and then a different key is used to decrypt. The public key is the one that's used for encryption. Anyone can share this freely and encrypt it. But the private key is kept secret, and only the recipient can decrypt the message. So in this example, I use my key to encrypt a message in this envelope, and I send the envelope to my friend. They have their own key to decrypt the message. So there are two keys at play here. And a real life example of this is, who here is logged into ING6 before? Yes. So if you use an SSH to log into ING6, you are sharing your public key with the server, and the server is responding with a secret key that is used to have you log in without your password. So this sounds super dandy, right? Everyone should be using asymmetric encryption. But there are pros and cons. Pros, again, you can share these messages and these keys with anyone, anywhere, over any medium, because only the recipient has the unlocking key. You don't have to distribute the separate keys like how you did with symmetric encryption, where every user needed their own key. So that makes it very scalable. However, key pairs require two keys instead of one. So there's a lot of processing overhead, and handling larger keys is very mathematically intensive because of all the encryption and decryption that's going on both ends. So this makes asymmetric encryption really impractical for everyday use or frequent transactions. So if you guys are lacking encryption, CSE 29 will go over hashing and cracking passwords and other types of encryption. Highly recommend that class.
What's the CC 107?
And 107. I haven't gone there yet. I will. But that is it for our second workshop. So again, so far, you guys have covered 4 domains already. There's only one more domain, which we're covering next week on Wednesday, 5 p.m., same time, same place. And then after that, you guys will be ready to take the exam. And for the people who are new here, all the questions in the presentation today are questions from the exam. We just fixed it a little bit to make it more fun. But yeah, you guys are this close to getting certified. It's happening real soon. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to stick around. Ask me, ask any of our board members. Thank you for coming, guys. See you guys next week on Wednesday, 5 p.m.